Hello, welcome back to Learn Economia. Here also we will be covering a very important theory in the arena of development economics. Actually, in this particular video, we are discussing a set of theories which has got some kind of similar character. Okay. Having said so, let's understand the dualistic theories in the arena of development economics. We can see that there are different theories which are of the view that all the problems experienced by underdeveloped economies or poor economies can be attributed to the dualistic character of these economies. Coming to the dualistic character, we mainly refer to three types of dualism. Starting with social dualism, then we have technological dualism, then we have financial dualism. No, these are not the only types of dualism. We have many other types of dualism as well. But in this particular video, we'll be discussing only these three different types of dualism. So having said so, let's understand each of these dualistic types in a detailed form. So coming to the first category, that is social dualism. This is also known as a sociological dualism. This concept is introduced by a Dutch economist by the name Boyk, J.H. Boyk. He actually studied an Indonesian economy and he presented his theory of social dualism. He maintains that there are three characteristics of a society in the economic sense, and he named it as so he named all these characters and he named it as first one social spirit, then we have organizational form, and thirdly we have techniques dominating all these things. He says that there exists some kind of interrelationship and interdependence among all these three forms, and this is called as the social system or social style. And he says that a society is homogeneous if there is only one kind of social system, but in reality we have got two or multiple types of social systems, and which is known as, if you have two types of social system, we say it as, or we consider it as dual economy, or if we have multiple types of social systems, then we consider it as plural society or plural economy. Okay, Dr. Boyk, he says that the dual society is a society which has two full-grown social styles which represent pre-capitalism and post-capitalism. One style represents pre-capitalism and the other one representing post-capitalism. Such a dual society is considered to be furnished with, it is considered to be furnished with the existence of advanced imported Western system on one side and endogenous pre-capitalistic agriculture system on the other side. In the former, which says about the advanced imported Western system, this uses the advanced techniques of production, and also we can see that in this particular section the standard of living is very high. But if you compare this with the other one, the other side, what we have on the other side is a pre-capitalistic agriculture system. Here everything is outdated. Outdated technique is used for production, and also the quality of life of the people is low, the standard of life of the people is low, and this is called a sociological or social dualism. I mean the difference between the imported Western system and the indigenous pre-capitalistic agriculture system. This is known as a dualism, social dualism, as per Boyk. Okay, and the imported social system is considered to be highly capitalist, or this can be highly capitalist, but and also it can be socialistic as well as communistic system. Okay. Now coming to the characteristic features of a dualistic economy, you can see that there exist two sectors. First one is the eastern sector, the other one is the western sector, and the needs of eastern sector is something which are considered to be very much limited, and people actually they live a contented life. They are always satisfied because they do not aim for anything. They are satisfied with what they have. This is a scenario of the eastern sector. Here people work for social needs rather than for their economic needs. As a result, even if they have something as enough, they are satisfied with that. They won't aim for more. For example, we can see that if a 3-acre land is enough to be cultivated in order to satisfy the needs of a household, they will cultivate only 3 acres of land. They won't go for anything more. Okay, and also we can see that the goods are cultivated according to the prestige value rather than the use value. And as a result of all these things, we could see that the Eastern economies are characterized with the backward bending supply curve of effort and risk taking. If they are given more wages, I mean, to an extent, with increasing wages, there will be increasing supply of laborers. But after a particular point, even if they are given more wages, what they do is that they won't go for employment for further hours because they want leisure. So all these things make the life of the people contented and all. So this is a particular scenario of the eastern sector, and this is what makes the eastern sector different from what we could see in the case of the western sector. Okay. Then we could see that here the people are indulged in speculative activities rather than business enterprise, and they do not take any kind of risk by going for productive investment, and these people lack initiative, organization skill compared to what we could see in the western sector. Here labor is unorganized, passive and unskilled. The urban development takes place at the cost of rural life. Here we have to understand the role of imports and exports. Export is something that we could see in the case of eastern sector, whereas we could see imports in the case of west sector. Due to the differences or due to the features of the eastern society, the western economic theory is not applicable to the underdeveloped economies. And the western economic theory, this is something which is considered to be capitalistic, so it can be applicable only to the capitalistic society, whereas the eastern sector is considered to be pre-capitalistic. Okay, the western sector is based upon the unlimited wants and needs of people, whereas the eastern sector, as we have already told, people are contented and satisfied with what they have. Here the marginal productivity theory cannot be applied in the case of underdeveloped economies for the resource allocation and distribution in the income because of the immobility of resources. Resources are not mobile as we think in the case of underdeveloped economies or in the eastern sector. So we should not try to, so as per Boyd, what he is telling is that it is not better to try to transplant the delicate houseplant of Western theory to the tropical soils where we could see some early death. So it is better for pre-capitalistic agriculture sector or eastern sector it is better to go along with the western sector, but we have to understand, we have to put a limit on this. Okay, the modern agriculture techniques cannot be applied how long the mental attitudes of the farmers are not changed. Otherwise, the increase in the wealth following the modern technology will result in the growth of population. Moreover, in this case, what happens is that there would be failure of modern technology and the country's debtedness would increase. Okay, so this will create a problem for the growth of the economy. As far as the industrial field is concerned, the eastern producers cannot follow the western technology on the basis of economic and social reasons. Boyk actually refers to five kinds of unemployment in underdeveloped economies, and he has named all these things. The first one, we have seasonal unemployment, then we have casual unemployment, then we have unemployment of regular workers, then we have unemployment of white collared class, and also we have unemployment of Eurasians. According to Boyd, the government is actually unable to remove all kinds of unemployment situations, mainly because of the reason that it will require some kind of funds to create new job opportunities. So he says that limited wants and limited purchasing power in the eastern sector can hamper the economic development. So if the food supply is increased or the industrial goods are increased, it will bring a glut of the economies of the commodities in the market. Actually the commodities won't be demanded, but there will be oversupply of the commodities in the market. As a result, there would be market glut in the economy. So as a result of the market glut in the economy, what happens is that the price of the commodities will fall, and this will eventually lead to what we could see as a depression. So this is something what we have seen in the 1930s when the world had gone through a phase of the Great Depression, which is known as the Great Depression of the 1930s. Okay. But this does not mean that Boyk is completely against industrialization and agriculture development. Rather, he supported it. But he says that this has to be a slow process. There should be some slow process of industrialization and slow process of agriculture development. There can be some small scale development or small scale development of or small scale industries can be developed, or agriculture development can happen on a small scale, so that there can be some kind of adaptability with the dualistic structure of the Eastern society. So the urge for development should come from the people themselves. This is the main argument of Boyk. And he says that new leaders must emerge and they should work for the goal of development with faith, charity and patience. With that, let us go to technological dualism. So it was Professor Higgins who has developed the concept of technological dualism, and by technological dualism he means that the use of different production functions in the advanced sector and in the traditional sectors, and this is also with respect to the underdeveloped economies. And he says that the existence of such kind of dualism has increased the problem of structural and technological unemployment in the industrial sector and discussed unemployment in the rural sector. Higgins' theory of technological dualism actually incorporates a factor proportion problem as discussed by many other economists, which is related to the limited productive employment opportunities found in the two sectors of, especially in the case of underdeveloped economies. This is because of the market imperfections, different factor endowments and different factor production functions or different production functions. And the underdeveloped economies, these are characterized by different structural disequilibrium even at the factor level. And this disequilibrium arises mainly because of single factor gets different returns in different uses, or because the price relationship among factors are out of line with factor availabilities. Such kind of disequilibriums can lead to unemployment or underemployment in two different ways. First one is through imperfection of price system, and second one is through structure of demand, which results in the surplus labor in our overpopulated backward economy. Okay, and thus the technological unemployment in underdeveloped economies is something because of the surplus labor which results from the misallocation of resources and structure of demand. Higgins constructed his theory by assuming two goods, two factors and two sectors, and their factor endowments and production functions. Of these, we can see that two sectors are the industrial sector engaged in plantation, mines, field and large scale industry. It is something that which is capital intensive and characterized by fixed technical coefficient, that is factors have to be combined in fixed proportions. While in the case of rural sector, this is something that is engaged in producing foodstuffs, handicrafts and other small scale industries, and it has changeable technical coefficients or flexible technical coefficients of production, and hence it has got different alternating combinations of labor and capital. Thus we could see that because of different production functions, unemployment or underemployment comes to being in the case of underdeveloped economies. As per Higgins, we can see that the industrial sector uses capital intensive techniques and fixed technical coefficient, and it is not in a position to create employment opportunities at the same time when the population grows. Okay, rather the industrialization actually reduces employment in this sector. Therefore, we could see that the rural sector is an alternative of surplus labor. When there is an unemployment situation existing in the case of urban industrial sector, this surplus labor will be absorbed by the rural agriculture sector. In the beginning, it is possible to absorb all the additional labor by bringing more lands in the cultivation, but we know that land availability is something that is fixed in the economy, and this leads to optimal combination of labor and capital, and eventually good land will become scarce, and the ratio of labor to capital in that sector rises, and techniques will become increasingly variable in the sector. Ultimately, what will happen is that all the available lands would be cultivated by high labor intensive techniques, and the marginal productivity of labor will become zero, and ultimately this will lead to negative. And thus, with the growth of population, discussed unemployment will appear. Under these kinds of circumstances, farmers will have no incentive either to invest more capital or to introduce more labor saving techniques. As a result of all these things, the techniques of production, the productivity of labor and social economic life will become low in the rural sector. In the long run, the scenario is that the technological progress does not help in removing any kind of disguised unemployment, and on the other hand, it tends to increase the number of disguisedly unemployed people. The situation is further aggravated by keeping the wage rate artificially high by trade unions and all, and also government policies will also be there which will keep the wages artificially high. And for high industrial wages relative to the productivity provide an incentive to the producers for introducing labor saving techniques and all, and this will diminish the further capacity of the industry sector to absorb surplus labor. As a result, all these factors increase technological dualism in underdeveloped economies. Having said so, let's move on to the third concept, that is financial dualism. This concept has been put forward by Mint, and he says that financial dualism rises because of the division of money markets in organized and unorganized sectors. That is, in underdeveloped economies or least developed economies, there are two sectors. First one is the organized money market, and second one is the unorganized money market. The rate of interest in the unorganized money market, as per Mint, is higher than that in the organized money market, which is concerned with the modern sector. Okay, and the unorganized money market consists of village money lenders, landlords, etc. They will charge a very high interest rate because the lenders have monopoly and the position of the borrowers is very weak. And also we could see that there is a shortage of savings in the traditional sector because most of the savings are made in the form of gold, land, etc. And also we could see that due to the natural calamities and all, the risk attached with lending money is very high. So with all these things, the interest rate in the unorganized sectors would be high compared to what we could see in the case of the organized sector. Thus, we find that the high interest rate with the farmers have to pay not only consists of the formal interest rate charges, but also the concealed charges obtained through the underpricing of the grains purchased by the farmers. On the other hand, in the organized money market of the underdeveloped economies, the interest rates are comparatively low and also the credit facilities are abundant here. The loans are advanced to the manufacturing sector and the export industry and the modern sector. Here, as per Professor Ming, there was an old financial dualism which existed in the open economy of the colonial period and the financial dualism which now exists is something different. Under colonial system, the perfect convertibility at the fixed exchange rate system was there. Consequently, there was no shortage of foreign exchange, and also there was no problem of balance of payment. But now what happens is that the underdeveloped economies have to face the internal as well as external balance. As a result, the poor traders and small peasants have to face high interest rate, but also not only this, but also the shortage of foreign exchange also exists here. And then they are not in a position to go for the advanced machinery and all. Under colonial system, the organized money market of underdeveloped economies consisted of the branches of Western commercial banks which were linked with the international financial market. In the colonial system, the modern sector consisting of mines, plantation, foreign trade borrowed a low interest rate. Both form the Western banks and the world capital market. But the present LDCs have attained monetary independence by establishing their own central banks. They have introduced exchange control. As a result, the organized money market of LDCs have been separated from the world capital market. Hence, their central banks are following the cheap monetary policy even when they are having shortage of funds. They are maintaining the overvalued exchange rate on the ground that devaluation will create some forms of inflation. On the other hand, there is some chronic excess demand for foreign exchange in the poor economies. To meet all these kinds of situations, these countries will depend upon the exchange control, direct controls, monetary policy, fiscal policy, etc. And this has led to the enhancement of the economic dualism between the traditional sector and the modern sector. And there would be the cheap monetary policy by maintaining artificial low interest rates, and this will become helpful for the large industrial sector. And low interest rate have discouraged the flow of funds from abroad and savings from within the country, but this would create an excess demand for loans. Thus, the major part of the demand and domestic savings are flowing towards the industrial sector, and this has reduced the capital to the traditional agriculture sector, which they have to get only at a higher interest rate. The foreign exchange controls to correct the deficit in BOP has also benefited the modern industrial sector against the traditional sector. And this is because the major share of available foreign exchange is allocated to the industrial sector to import capital intensive good. On the other hand, we could see that the agriculture and small scale sector will fail to get the foreign exchange and import permits because of the red tape and corruption, etc. in the underdeveloped economies. And most of the UDCs have established agriculture banks and cooperatives, but these institutions are found to be providing loans to the influential people only. So all this will lead to misallocation of resources between the modern sector and the traditional sector, and some money markets in the LDCs will remain as backward. And domestic inflation along with the overvalued exchange rate have encouraged flight of capital, and these countries where this is checked, the capital is moved in the purchase of gold, jewelry, etc. And this is because of the low interest rate against investment, and hence money market will remain ineffective. Government controls over the scarce supply of capital have retarded the growth of the financial intermediaries. These controls favor large-scale manufacturing units and banks. They discriminate against the small borrowers and money lenders who provide credit to small borrowers. In underdeveloped economies, there is a belief that the capital funds invested in durable capital goods are productive, while those invested in financing, agriculture and trading are unproductive. According to Min, the cheap and easy credit to the traditional sector is not provided mainly because the high overhead costs and salaries of officials of commercial banks in the rural areas, red tapeism in dealing with the small borrowers according to rigid rules, lack of coordination between head office and branches, and lack of subsidized loans to agricultural banks. Okay, so Professor Mint has suggested two types of policies in which could be used in order to reduce the financial dualism in underdeveloped economies. The first one is that the official interest rate in the organized capital market can be increased, and this will attract the saving from in the country and out of the country. It will also create an equilibrium between the demand for loanable funds and supply of loanable funds, and there should be free access to equal terms or to capital funds by modern and traditional sector. This will reduce misallocation of resources between the two sectors. And that's all for today's video. Please like, share and subscribe this channel for more videos, and thank you for watching.